Hello and welcome into this edition of the Golf Chill Podcast with Rex and Lav. After day one of the 45th Ryder Cup, Europe leads 5.5, the U.S. 2.5. It is the biggest lead the Europeans have had on American soil since 2004. Rex, was this Europe playing lights out? Or was this Americans, bad decisions, and even worse play?
I think two things and three things and maybe four things can be true. And look, we're going to wait until Monday to get on the couch and start picking things apart for whichever team ends up losing. And I think walking around proper today, I think there's plenty of reasons to start picking apart maybe Keegan Bradley's decision. But as he just told me on live from, as I did my live to tape with him, that they have 75% of the Ryder Cup to play. And I'm willing to let it go. Like, look, there's plenty of things.
You don't think it's getting late early?
I do not. Like, we have seen this before. And look, history, and you're really good at this. And my guess is you got a lot of numbers cranking around inside your head that you want to throw out about only 5% of teams who fall 5.5, 2.5 come back to win. I'm sure there's something along those lines. You just can't wait to spit in my face. However, I do want to give the American team the benefit of the doubt on this one and just let it play out. No. I mean, I want to go straight to the Bryson DeChambeau conversation that you and I had a heated conversation about last night, because I think it was a mistake. I think it's a mistake again to send him out pretty much in the exact same spot, different partner. He'll have Cam Young alongside him, but I just not a very good foursomes player. And we can have a bigger debate about that. We can have a debate about the idea the golf course is set up wrong. We can have a debate that maybe you don't send Colin Morikawa and Harris English back out again, because I can see statistically on paper why they matched up, but clearly they didn't have anything today. However, the other part of your equation, Europe played lights out by and large. When you look at it, consider that Rory McIlroy, Tommy Fleetwood, they played 5 under par. John Rahm, Terrell Hatton, they were 5 under par for the day. That's not even the best European pairing in the foursomes this morning. That was Ludwig Oberg. They were 7 under par.
Matt Fitzpatrick played lights out for a player who was 1-7 previously in the Ryder Cup, the worst won-loss percentage of any player in Ryder Cup history, to perform how he did. Easily, by far, the best player on Friday morning. Really set the tone for the Europeans.
And a bit of a surprise, to be honest with you. I think you and I both called 3-1 in the morning foursome session, and we'll get into the afternoon four-baller in a second. We were right. I don't want to take a victory lap because I think we both didn't have the right one or the right threes, by and large. You and I thought for sure Scotty Scheffler and Russell Henley were going to be that magical pairing that we had all anticipated, but Scotty Scheffler clearly doesn't have his game this week. In the afternoon four-ball session, when the world number one, who has been as dominant as he is, doesn't make a birdie until the 13th hole, something's wrong.
I mean, there's just so much to get into. There's a reason why it's nicknamed the Hindsight Cup, right? However, we did foreshadow some of the issues.
There's also a reason why it's named a mini pod.
Yes, exactly. Let's first start with your insistence that Bryson DeChambeau is a poor selection for the foursomes session. In the morning, Friday morning, Bryson DeChambeau was statistically the best player on the U.S. side. That is indisputable. He was more than a stroke better, according to Data Golf's statistical rankings, than any player. In the afternoon, guess what? He was number 2. So Bryson DeChambeau is not the problem this week. Yes, his record is 0-2. Yes, I think there's probably going to be some question marks about who he has played with. This week, he is 0-2. He's only played 2 matches. I do like I do like setting him out there in foursomes because he has been, again, the second best player at this point. And they're pairing him, Keegan Bradley is, on Saturday morning with Cameron Young, who was clearly one of the breakout stars of the afternoon, delivering with Justin Thomas a 6-5 victory in those afternoon four balls. Really played inspired, made 5 birdies. I think that could potentially be a dynamic duo. This is something we had signaled early in the week. The practice round pod grouping the entire week, all 3 practice round sessions for the Americans: Justin Thomas, Ben Griffin, Bryson DeChambeau, and Cameron Young. Not a huge surprise that Keegan Bradley is going in this direction. That is the only change from Friday to Saturday. Other than that, Keegan Bradley's running it back with the exact same threesome.
And I asked the captain if his plan, which you talked a lot about, changed at all, if at all, after today's action. He said not really. He was sticking with his plan, and this goes back to the Mike Tyson line. Everyone's got a plan to get punched in the face, and the United States team got punched in the face.
They're down by 3 on home soil, and he's not deviating from his plan. Isn't that a little bit alarming to you?
Didn't sound like it. Let me go back to my other thing. First and foremost, there's a reason why they don't use strokes gained in this event, because it's match play, and it's really not a good equivalency. It just doesn't work when it comes to this, because there's so many different variances when it comes to match play. You give putts, you let your partner do this, you're basing what you do on what the other team does. It's not like playing a stroke play event. And I would argue the same thing about data golf. The fact of the matter is, when you look at what Bryson DeChambeau does, you go to the first tee, and that was very much on brand. Standing on that first tee, you and I were both down there, and for him to just pound that drive down there, I think it was 43 yards short of the green, to get the crowd excited. I mean, that was cool. That's exactly what Keegan Bradley was trying to do. But from that point on, he did not play a good golf. Number 3, his approach shot, his tee shot, bunker on the left-hand side. Lost that hole. Number 12.
John Rahm also in the bunker.
Number 12. Well, we're not debating John Rahm right now. Number 12, his approach was left. They ended up going 2 down after he left Justin Thomas short-sided. I'll skip ahead to number 15, where his drive was so far right, I think it was in the NBC hospitality suite, and he left Justin Thomas with absolutely no approach to a brutal green.
Justin Thomas hit the green.
He did, but it was an absolute brutal approach. That was what?
The rough
Let's
is
estimate.
The rough is 2 inches long.
Estimate 40 feet to 50 feet long and left, which left him an impossible putt down the hill. You and I were both standing there. Also, if you want to talk about putting, and that entire match, he made 3 putts that were over 5 feet, made only 1 putt over 10 feet. Look, he has lost with Tiger Woods. He has lost with Phil Mickelson. Now he has lost with Justin Thomas. I would argue we can continue to send stars out with him. And we can continue to see he is what his record says he is. In foursomes play, he's 0-3-0. That's when captains feel comfortable even putting him out there. Many captains haven't even felt comfortable doing that. So at this point, we have enough data to say he's simply not a good foursomes player. That's the fact.
I honestly, I disagree. You're basing 66% of that on something that in 2018, when again, he was a wildly different player.
2018, 2021, and 2019, he didn't play foursomes play in 2. So captains in 2018 and 2019 saw something that they realized, nope, he's not a good foursomes player. They didn't even send him out.
Or they just had preconceived notions and didn't want to alter their plans. Which
I
Keegan
believe
Bradley,
today is proof that those plans came to fruition.
they did not lose because of Bryson DeChambeau today.
I'm
Justin
not gonna-
Thomas did not make
No,
anything,
I'm
and they
not
also,
gonna let you
I think you also have to give credit to the Europeans.
Sure.
John
they played
Rahm and
fantastic.
Terrell Hatton are the second best pairing.
Absolutely.
John Rahm has never lost in foursomes. He's now 5-0, I believe, in the foursome session. Like, that was a very tough ask. But Bryson DeChambeau is not the scapegoat. It was not wrong.
I'm not
There's
saying he's a
reason why he's sending
scapegoat.
him out.
Both him and JT didn't play well. I'm not going to make excuses for JT either, but I'm also not going to let you go into this revisionism hole because you're simply wrong and you won't admit it. The fact of the matter is he's not a good foursomes player. I said this last night and I'll say it again. Doesn't make him a bad person. He's a very good player. A lot of players don't particularly like foursomes play. It's weird. It's awkward. You're leaving your partner in difficult positions. 4-ball play, he was fantastic. I'm sure on Sunday singles, he'll be fantastic. He's not a good alternate shot partner.
We have one example of him playing alternate shot in the last 7 years. And what did he do? He was the best statistical player on Friday morning.
4
Very
years
curious to
ago,
see.
4 years ago, Tiger didn't even march him out. That Tiger Woods saw something in him. No, that's not right. It was
Steve
2019.
Stricker.
Steve Stricker didn't even march him out in alternate shot. He saw something that he didn't like and didn't do it. 2 years before that, Tiger Woods in Australia didn't even march him out. Didn't even put him in that arena. There's a reason for that. You're ignoring it, but there's a reason for that.
Preconceived notion, also players change. He is a wildly different player.
In 4 years, he has not changed
he
that
bears
much. You tried
zero,
that last night, too.
He bears zero resemblance.
4
Different
years ago,
equipment,
he was the
different
same
golf
player.
ball, different body,
All right.
different
We
swing
can move
speed.
on.
It's just over and over again. I would be very interested to see, though, Rex, if Bryson DeChambeau ran it back with Scotty Scheffler. Keep in mind, they were a very successful partnership in 2021 at Whistling Straits, going 1-0-1 together. We're not going to see it this week, at least not in foursomes. Potentially, if things go awry, you may potentially see that in the afternoon. How about, I think, just the big stars overall, Rex, where you have Bryson DeChambeau going 0-2, Scotty Scheffler going 0-2. You have on the opposite side, I would argue those are the two best players on the American side. On the opposite side, John Rahm 2-0, Tommy Fleetwood 2-0, Rory McIlroy 1-0-1 after just missing on the 18th green that potentially could have given them a full point and really would have made this a 6-2 lopsided affair after one day. I think you don't want to make a lazy narrative of just, oh, the stars are playing better. If you zoom out, Europe stars are playing better than the American stars, and that goes through the narrative that we've had for basically 2 decades. Tiger Woods, sub-500 record. Phil Mickelson, sub-500 record. Jim Furyk, sub-500 record. Scotty Scheffler, at this point, the best player we have seen since Tiger Woods, sub-500 record in the Ryder Cup.
At this point, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around it because I felt like after what happened in Rome that there was going to be something in Scotty Scheffler that figured it out. this time around. I think in Rome, you could have made excuses for the idea that he hadn't played in 4 or 5 weeks since the Tour Championship, and he had also just started working with Phil Kenyon. It's also an away game. There are a lot of different reasons you can make excuses for Scottie Scheffler's play. There aren't any anymore. He's comfortable now. He's world number one now. He is supposed to lead this team. I think I said last night, if the United States was going to have any chance, he needed to do something in the neighborhood of 5-0 or 4-0. Can't do that now. That's simply not going to happen. I'm not saying he can't turn it around and still do something special for the American side, but that, you talk about laying something on someone's shoulders. I think if you're sitting in that team room and you're looking around, certainly you're going to look at Scottie Scheffler and what that U.S. team needs out of him and be disappointed. You don't want to lay it all on his shoulders. Like, look, I think
but they clearly needed him to play well, and he hasn't.
Absolutely. And I think there's something to be said for maybe the pairings didn't play out the way they did. You wouldn't have never have put anyone other than Russell Henley based on their history in the President's Cup together. That makes perfect sense. I'm not second guessing Keegan Bradley on that one, but I'm certainly second guessing why you would set the golf course up as a birdie fest, which is weird because I don't think birdie fest and Bethpage Black have ever been uttered in the exact same sentence. And yet you look at what's happening this week, it is. And that's not the way Scottie Scheffler likes to play golf.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Scottie Scheffler does not like birdie fest. If you wanted to maximize the advantage for these American players, I think you would set it up to be very similar to a U.S. Open or really a stout PGA like we saw here in 2019. Look at the composition of the players that you have. Bryson DeChambeau, 2-time U.S. Open champion. Scottie Scheffler has played well in the U.S. Open. Russell Henley, a very precise, accurate player. J.J. Spaun, Colin Morikawa, Harris English. You can go. Xander Schauffele has a phenomenal record in the U.S. Open. You can go on and on. Instead, you have a situation where players are standing up on the tee. They're never hitting anything less than driver on both the U.S. and the European side. And all of a sudden, you look at the 2025 European team. On average, they're a longer group than the Americans for the first time in Ryder Cup history. So you have a Jon Rahm swinging out of his shoes. I'm not sure I've ever seen Jon Rahm swing as hard as he is this week. That's why I didn't have an issue with Bryson playing in both sessions. That's why I think Jon Rahm, if his stamina can stay up on Saturday, unless the advantage is too significant for the Europeans and they feel like they want to sit him on Saturday afternoon to rest him, I anticipate him continuing to play, Rory continuing to play, Rasmus Højgaard. Like, it just bombs away for these players. I'm with you. The golf course setup leaves a little bit to be desired. Yes, we got a lot of rain, inch to an inch and a half. The greens are super, super soft, which makes
slow, and that's a problem.
And slow as well. And so it makes even the misses in the rough that much easier to save yourself and salvage what had been a poor offline shot. And so I'm not loving the golf course setup this week. I think that may have backfired on Keegan Bradley. How about biggest disappointment for you this part? You take away Scottie, you take away Bryson. Who has been the biggest disappointment to you at this point?
Well, I have to say Keegan. And again, you have to let this play out. 75% still has to go. But we've talked endlessly about the golf course. If you really wanted to lean into what your team is good at, as I think you pointed out last night, Scottie Scheffler plays U.S. Opens brilliantly. You have the reigning U.S. Open champion on your team. You have a 2-time U.S. Open champion in Bryson DeChambeau. Harris English plays his best golf in the U.S. Open, and we're at a U.S. Open venue, and yet somehow a version of the Bob Hope Classic has broken out, and it doesn't make any sense. That's going to come back a little bit. I think you might want to question the pairings a little bit, and this isn't even hindsight. I think we heard this even before what happened today about the possibility of Harris English and Colin Morikawa playing together. Yeah, statistically it adds up on paper, but Colin Morikawa's not playing very well right now. I will say I think Xander Schauffele was a very pleasant surprise for the U.S. side, because in my mind he was the biggest question mark going into that, and he and Patrick Cantlay were Patrick Cantlay.
Patrick Cantlay looked phenomenal, particularly in that afternoon 4 balls, going toe-to-toe with Rory McIlroy. The two of those players combined for 10 birdies in that 4 balls match, ended up in a tie. I'm with you. You say it looks good on paper. I think it sounds good in theory. We have an accurate player in Colin Morikawa, both his driving and his approach play, and then you pair that up with Harris English's putting. Like, that sounds good.
And Harris's driving as well.
Yeah. However, Data Golf, this is not a misprint. Data Golf crunched 132 potential possibilities for partnerships, sort of ranking them, which would be the best potential partnerships. There's 132 combinations. Any guesses where Harris English and Colin Morikawa ranked out of 132?
I think something closer to 133.
132 indeed. They were the worst possible pairing. They lost 5-4 to Rory McIlroy and Tommy Fleetwood, who again they were 5 under in alternate shot. I'm not discounting that at all. However, they are running them back. The exact same duo which
Don't
the
get
data analytics is saying this is a very, very bad idea. They're going off in match 2, a rematch. It's hard to imagine you would see anything different on Saturday morning.
And this is going to be a much different podcast tomorrow night if things don't play out a little bit better for the United States team.
You have your knives out?
I don't even know if not quite knives out. Again, you have to wait till Monday morning, the smoke to completely clear to start questioning this. To circle back around to your other question, I would say to a certain degree the crowds were a disappointment, and not necessarily because of the crowds. They really didn't have anything to cheer about. I think someone on our staff was saying, well, what's going on? It's quiet out there. What's wrong with the crowd? Was the United States team didn't give them much to cheer about. The crowds were there, and they were loud, and according to Bryson DeChambeau, they were vulgar, and I certainly heard plenty of things around the golf course today that you kind of cringe a little bit. I will give the European Tour credit. They never broke stride. They never, like, Rory McIlroy on the first tee.
Roy did flip off a fan on 11.
Sure, and Rory McIlroy on the first tee. I don't know if I can say this. Well, they were chanting something on the first tee that was wildly offensive and even shocked me a little bit, and he just rolled with it.
What's it rhyme with?
Play you.
Oh, yep, got it.
I don't know. You guys are going to have to figure that one out. Sorry, it's a family podcast. I apologize. But I think by and large, all of them pretty much stuck with the idea. And I actually heard some clever stuff. I think the one I heard that was the best. We're not going to do this. We can sit and do this all night long. Matthew Fitzpatrick was asked from the crowd, Matt, the Junior Ryder Cup finished yesterday. I thought it was great.
It was, of course, Matt Fitzpatrick got the last laugh.
Yes.
After absolutely stunting on them alongside Ludwig Oberg, going 5-3. I was not disappointed by the fans. Like, I thought it was absolute scenes out there. It was a great atmosphere.
It was.
It was a lot of people. It was really, really cool. However, if you're Europe, what do you want to do? You want to start fast to take the home crowd out of it. Mission accomplished. I do worry a little bit because I heard the exact same things that you heard today. I do worry about it because there was this sort of perception that, if the Americans are disappointing, I think the fans are going to turn on the Americans and start rooting for the Europeans. That's not going to happen. I think, if anything, the fans are going to become even more entrenched and become even more vitriolic towards the Europeans. It could be a very hostile atmosphere. I did not hear any sort of jeering or booing or sounds right as the Europeans were pulling back the club, which I think was good.
On 18 when Rory was about to finish up.
Yes, I said 800 years of oppression, Rory, 800 years.
Yes.
That was right.
With a very interesting Irish accent, I must say.
That was right before he pulled back the club. I do worry you could potentially have a scenario over the weekend where it does interfere. It does become when a player is trying to hit a shot. I think that would be very, very unfortunate if it pans out.
Now, you and I had a quick anecdote I want to get to you before you bounce us
go
out
ahead.
here. So right as the last match was marching to the 15th tee and the other matches were finished, it was very tense. Things clearly weren't going the United States way. On cue, almost, Air Force One, the president was here today. Again, please don't start with the politics. We don't care. It's just a fact. The president was here today. President Donald Trump was here today. But right on cue, as they were marching to the 15th tee, Air Force One made a very low passover. And it was really interesting. And everyone's kind of going nuts. The best part about it, though, you and I were standing just off to the side, and Luke Donald walked by us with a smile on his face, and he had to acknowledge, that's cool. That was really cool. You guys got me on that one. I can't match that one. That one's cool.
First time a sitting president has attended the Ryder Cup. Very cool. I'm not sure if you asked the 50,000 fans who attended and had to go through the very extensive TSA type screening, if they thought it was cool.
Not good.
Also, the logistics issues of getting to the shuttles, also an issue. But that is a topic for another day. Let's go real quick. What do you think the score of the Saturday morning foursomes is? Against be Bryson and Cameron Young versus Ludwig Oberg and Matt Fitzpatrick in the first match. Second match, Harris English, Kyle Morikawa versus Rory and Tommy Fleetwood, as we just discussed. Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay, the lone duo that won a point for the Americans on Friday morning, going up against the heralded duo of John Rahm and Tyrrell Hatton. In the final spot, Russell Henley and Scotty Scheffler once again going up against Robert McIntyre and Victor Hovland, who are losers on Friday morning. How do you see the foursome session on Saturday morning playing out?
You could sit and study that, but the only way to come away with the only takeaway you can do is you have to run a bat. It's going to be 1-3 again, Europeans' way, or 3-1 Europeans' way. And actually, I think the one that I guessed yesterday is actually going to come through. I think Scotty Scheffler and Russell Henley are going to figure something out. Also, I would argue right now, Bob McIntyre and Victor Hovland are probably the weakest of those foursome pairings. I mean, I guess I can get proven wrong really quickly tomorrow, but I can't talk my way through another scenario that the United States can somehow claw back in that format. And I made the argument yesterday that if the United States falls 1-3 behind, Keegan Bradley's probably okay with that because he knows that, okay, we can fight our way out of that. The bigger issue will be if they do go 1-3 again tomorrow morning, they have to have a much better afternoon. That goes without saying.
If they go 1-3 in the morning, you're potentially going to have some really tired players, Bryson DeChambeau, Scotty Scheffler, who have to go out in the afternoon. Otherwise, this thing could potentially be over before you get into Sunday. I see a split 2-2 in this foursome sessions. I do like the Bryson Cam Young, as we've discussed. You would probably be betting on history that Matt Fitzpatrick would not sustain the form day over day. I know he's been trending well over the past couple. I also see, as you do, that Russell Henley, Scotty Scheffler bouncing back against two iron players who really struggled on Friday morning, Victor Hovland and Bob McIntyre. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of the Golf Show podcast with Rex and Lab. You guys know the drill. NBCSports.com/golf, aka golfchannel.com. I have a bunch of stuff on the site breaking down the morning session, the afternoon session, a story on Rory, a story on Keegan Bradley refusing to deviate from his plan, and much, much more. Talk to you guys on Saturday night after the second day of the Ryder Cup.